Hi, and welcome to this episode of John's Model Kit Review. In today's fun review video, we'll be looking at the Eduard I-16 Type 24 in 1/48 scale. This is Eduard kit number 8468. This is the weekend edition of this kit. This kit originally debuted in 2006, and it effectively surpassed the Hobbycraft kit that was released in the early 90s. I have previously reviewed the Hobbycraft I-16 on this channel. You can click the link above to see that review. In this review, we'll be looking at photos of the built-up kit. We'll look at the surface detailing on the exterior of the aircraft. I'll give a brief history of the I-16, and we'll take a look at the clear parts, and we'll talk about the fit and the clarity of those. We'll also go through the kit instructions, and we'll talk about any problem areas to watch out for during construction. We'll also talk about the detailing on the interior of the aircraft and on the landing gear as well, and other small bits. We'll look at the painting and marking guide, and then we'll also talk about the quality of the decals themselves. A brief history of the I-16. The Polikarpov I-16 is a Soviet single-engine, single-seat fighter aircraft of revolutionary design. It was the world's first low-wing cantilever monoplane fighter with retractable landing gear to attain operational status, and as such, it introduced a new vogue in fighter design. The I-16 was introduced in the mid-1930s, and it formed the backbone of the Soviet Air Force at the beginning of World War II. The diminutive fighter, nicknamed Ishak, or Donkey, by Soviet pilots, figured prominently in the Second Sino-Japanese War, the Battle of Khalkhin Gol, the Winter War, and the Spanish Civil War, where it was called the Rata by nationalists or Mosca by the Republicans. Over 10,000 I-16s were built. The I-16 was used by the Soviet Air Force, it was used by the Spanish Republican Air Force, and the Chinese Nationalist Air Force. The I-16 Type 24, which is the subject of this kit, was powered by a Shetsov M62 engine, producing 830 horsepower. It had a 2-speed supercharger and a variable pitch propeller. Armament on the I-16 consisted of 4 SHKAS machine guns, 2 synchronized in the fuselage and 2 in the wings. The I-16 was also capable of carrying rockets and bombs in operational service, and it served as a fighter and as a ground attack aircraft. Looking at what comes in the box, there are 5 sprues of plastic parts and 1 sprue of clear parts. Looking at the instructions, the first step of construction starts on page 2. In this step, we're mounting a lot of the small bits to the insides of the fuselage halves, and then we're joining the fuselage halves together. I would say you definitely want to take your time on the exhausts, as it is a little bit fiddly to get all of the exhausts properly aligned in each of the exhaust holes. From certain angles, you can see the sidewall detail inside the fuselage, and what's provided in this kit is sufficient for the scale. Moving on to page 3 of the instructions, we are building up the cockpit floor and the seat, and we're installing that into the fuselage. After that, we're assembling the instrument panel, and we're mounting that into the fuselage as well. In this photo, you can see the headrest for the pilot's seat. This shows where it should be when it is properly located. There are no real positive locators for these assemblies when you mount them into the fuselage, and it just makes this step more difficult than it needs to be. I added some scratch-built seat belts to this kit, and that's really the only upgrade I would recommend to this kit. I used a decal for the instrument panel, but honestly, you can leave the instrument panel completely off, and the chances are no one will ever notice because of its location in the fuselage. On page 4, we're building the wing assembly, and then we're attaching that to the fuselage. I was able to get a pretty decent fit on the upper wing to fuselage join. I was also able to get a pretty decent fit on the lower wing to fuselage join. On the upper portion of page 5, we are building the tail assembly. These parts went together very nicely. On the lower part of page 5, we are building the engine. We're installing that into the cowling. We're also installing more of the exhaust pipes into the fuselage, and we're adding the fuselage gun covers. Again, you just want to take your time mounting the exhaust to the aircraft, since this is a fiddly part of the construction, but nothing else here will really give you any issues. In this photo, you can see that there's just a little bit of the engine visible on the finished kit. On page 6, we are building the landing gear. This is another step where you really want to slow down, you want to take your time. The landing gear and the gear doors on the I-16 are somewhat complicated. In addition, the Eduard parts don't have a lot of positive locators, so it's important to just take your time on this step and work through it slowly. Construction of the landing gear continues on the top of page 7. In these photographs, you can see the completed landing gear. I didn't have any issues per se with this step. I was able to take my time on these steps and get the assembly correct. On the lower portion of page 7, we're just adding the final details to the aircraft. That includes the clear part, the antenna, the gun sight, and the prop and spinner. I was able to install all of these parts without issue. Looking at the color and marking guide, the kit includes black and white instructions. We can also refer to the box art on the top of the box. And there's another color 3-view drawing on the side of the box as well for reference. Looking at the kit supply decals themselves, the instrument panel decal that I used performed flawlessly. I don't anticipate any issues with these decals. They're thin, they're in register, and they're fairly opaque. Since I had already used this color scheme on the Hobbycraft I-16 that I had built previously, I decided I wanted to do another color scheme. I found this good quality photo of an I-16 in the green and black camouflage. I had the decals to model this aircraft left over from my Hobbycraft build, so I used this photo as a reference to paint the camouflage on the aircraft, and I'm really happy with the end result. One thing of note is that the 13 on the Hobbycraft decals is a little bit chubby compared to the 13 on the real aircraft, but I decided I could live with that. The clear parts on this kit are of excellent quality. They fit very nicely. The surface detailing on the exterior of the kit is very nice. It's restrained, it's not overdone. The fit on the larger parts of this kit was pretty decent. I didn't have any major fit issues. I had a lot of fun researching this color scheme and building this aircraft. I was kind of motivated once I found a color scheme that I wanted to paint. One thing I noticed on this I-16 was that it did not have locating holes for the underwing rockets that I would like to have installed on the kit, and there were no rockets included in the kit parts. I think that's an interesting omission since lots of the I-16s carried the underwing rockets. Even though this kit is fairly simple and it's not really parts heavy, I would recommend it to more experienced modelers simply due to the fact that there are not locator pins for a lot of the parts, and so you have to kind of go through and figure out exactly where the parts go as you build the kit. It's not inherently obvious when you start putting things together. I can recommend this kit to modelers with a little bit of experience who want to put a really nice looking I-16 on the shelf. Well, I'd love to know what you guys think. If any of you out there have built the Eduard, Polikarpov I-16, please let me know in the comment section below. As always, I hope you found this video entertaining and informative, and until next time, model on.